One moment, let me fix my sound.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
I can. I can.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you very much thank you very very much for coming on board with this, joining us for this interview.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for your great interview questions. They were very wonderful and in depth and showed a lot
Thank,
of understanding of what I was trying to do.
thank you, Chitra. Um,
I know that HarperCollins told me that your magazine is extremely popular and extremely widely read. So that's
yes,
lovely.
yes, thanks. It is. Yes. Uh, I know. Do you have a assignment today? Teaching assignment or anything today, Chitra?
No, today I don't have one. Not until later in the day. Sometimes they're in the morning, sometimes they're in the evening.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's how I could manage today.
Um, without any ado, let's just get into the questions right away. Tell me a little about yourself, Chitra. Can you tell me, to start with, how you got into writing? And the reason I ask is because very often what's available on Google or Wikipedia might not be the truth. I like to get it from the author herself.
Right, right. So my story is kind of unusual, and I know that only because now I teach creative writing, and in my classes there are, wonderful, talented students who say, "Well, from the time I could like hold a pen in my hand, I knew I wanted to be a writer." But that was not the case with me when I was growing up in India for the first 19, almost 20 years of my life. I never wrote anything. I never thought I would be a writer. I mean, you write some class assignments and things, but I never thought I would be a writer.
What did you want?
Um, I, I wanted to be a teacher because my mother was a teacher. So, I think that really influenced me. And sometimes I would go with her to her classes. And I liked that. I liked, sharing knowledge with people.
Growing
So
up
I
in
knew,
Kolkata, isn't it?
sorry?
Growing up in Kolkata.
Yes, growing up in Kolkata. So, then I came here to study literature because I loved literature. And the whole idea was I would teach literature. But then, as I was living here as an immigrant, the whole experience of immigration was a very powerful, transformative experience for me. And I wanted to explore that through writing. I thought writing would be a good way to explore it. And also, I felt that I really felt very cut off from India. This was in the 1970s, no internet. Um, Phones were very expensive at that point, so I couldn't even really call my friends or family. Very rarely could I call them, so we would only write aerograms, those aerograms to
Yes,
each other.
yes, yes.
So I felt I was losing touch with India and my experiences of India. And so I started writing for myself in those two areas, writing about India, what I know of it, what I learned of it, what I grew up with.
You started
And
with
then the whole
verse, isn't it? You,
sorry?
you started with verse, isn't it? Before moving to.
Yes, started with poetry. Started with poetry. And actually, it was the death of my grandfather that really started me off. I wanted to, I was very sad. I couldn't go back for his funeral. It was the middle of the semester. I was really a poor student at that point. I had no money, barely enough to go to school and manage my expenses. I couldn't go back to India. So I wrote a poem about him, for that occasion. And I think that really started me off. And then I started writing poetry about India, about the immigrant experience. But then I felt that I really wanted to explore the lives of people and the effect of events and circumstance on people's growth. So I felt that fiction was a better medium for that. So then I moved to short stories, and then by then a novel. So what happened was I had finished all my formal education by this time. I was teaching, but I wanted to learn more about writing, so I took just a regular course in a community college. But what was amazing, none of these things were things I planned, which really makes me think more and more that things happen in the world. We think we're planning them, but we're not. So the teacher of that course in this community college, he said, look, you have some talent, you really should explore it. Let me put you in touch with my agent. So he put me in touch with his agent, who really liked my work and became my agent. And that kind of pushed me into a professional track, as it were, because she went to New York, she showed my stories. That book, it was published. That was Arranged Marriage. It won an American Book Award. And that kind of really set my career on a certain path.
Lovely, lovely.
So,
How did being an immigrant being an immigrant in the US impact your work and your style of writing, Chitra?
yeah, I think because I was an immigrant, a big advantage was I was seeing things as an outsider, right? When you see things as an outsider, you don't take anything for granted. You question everything. So I approached the life around me in that kind of observant and questioning way. And I became also interested to see, well, what I am experiencing, is that something larger than just my personal experience? Is that the experience of others in my community? So, then I became very observant about the lives of others, especially women in my community. And I started listening very carefully. So, I would go to like parties, how we Desis have dinners and parties, and I would listen carefully to all of the conversations. And it was amazing. Everyone has a story. I really began to respect that. And I thought, this is the life, this very vibrant immigrant life with its challenges, but also its hopes and expectations and joys, and its sorrows for having left behind dear ones and a culture. I want to create a book with all of this in it. And that's kind of, or I want to create stories, or I want to create, extended stories, which is what novels are.
True. I'm a big fan of.
But then then I thought, wow, this is a great way of getting story ideas, right? You just go to parties and you listen. But after Arranged Marriage came out, everybody became very suspicious of me. So they won't talk much when I'm in the room.
But I'm a big fan of your books, particularly on Hindu mythology, Palace of Illusions and things. What fascinates you about Hindu mythology?
Okay, so after writing immigrant stories for a while, and also writing books that were contemporary but based in both India and America, I really started thinking about what I've been fascinated by ever since I was a child. I was telling you about my grandfather, and he was very dear to me. He was the only grandfather I had. Everyone else had passed away. So this is my mother's father. And I used to spend all my school vacations with him. And he was a great storyteller. So he would gather all of us cousins together, and he would tell us these stories out of the Mahabharata, out of the Ramayana. So I just grew up with a great love for these stories. I didn't think critically, like analytically about them, but I grew up with a great love. Now, as I grew older, I wanted to read them on my own, right? So, and as I read them, I began to see that they were filled with amazing, wonderful women characters. And at this time, these were my teenage years. I was thinking about what it meant to be a woman. But these women were always pushed to the side of the narrative. And although we see what happens to them, and sometimes we hear a few words, we never see what's happening in their heads. We never see why they do certain things. They are always the recipients of circumstance, often the victims, quote unquote, of circumstance. But I felt these are very strong, powerful, complex women, and there's more to them. So then I really started thinking about what is the invisible story of the women in our epics and our mythology, right? And I was, of course, fascinated, first of all, by Draupadi. I shouldn't say that. I was fascinated by Sita long time back, but I was really afraid to handle that story. I was like, wow, that's too much. I'm not ready for it. But Draupadi, I could handle that because, she's a woman just like me. later as I analyzed, I saw Sita is also a woman just like me. Yes, she has a divine aspect, but what I can learn from her is because she has her human aspect also. So anyway, I felt that there was a lot for me to understand and learn about the silent and invisible lives of these women. And that's what propelled me into writing books like Palace of Illusions and then Forest of Enchantments. I feel we have so much to learn from them, and that the story that's been given to us about these women is a largely patriarchal story, and that's not the truth of them.
In fact, I was having a chat with Anand some time ago, where he mentioned that apparently there are something like around 900 versions of the Ramayana, and
yes,
versions, Sita is the protagonist of the whole story. She tells the story. So
that's true. But those are not the stories that have been made popular. We have to research in order to find those stories. I had to research, like Adbhut Ramayan and Kamba Ramayan, in which Sita plays a much more active role. So, but I saw, wow, for whatever reason, these stories have been pushed aside, right? And only the kind of the central patriarchal version, often made popular by things like, movies and TV serials, understandable, but that's what's happened. So I think my enterprise was to bring back the original story in its complexity to show the power of the women. Their at once their humanness, right, to which we can relate, their pain, their frailty, but also their power. What can we learn from them? So, and to show that, that is the, what shall I say, the wonderful magic of our Indian way, is that we have these multiple and complex stories. So when we start saying there's only one truth, we're really shortchanging ourselves. Yeah. So I hope that this kind of multiplicity and this embrace of multiplicity is something that people will look at as this is central to our Indian culture. If you want to use the word Hindu, you can also say this is central to our Hindu culture. How many Puranas we have, how many gods and goddesses we have. And people were very comfortable with the idea of multiplicity, which led to one truth, but which expressed in beautiful multiple ways. And the lives of the women are a big example for me, very central to that.
I think those kind of issues have had a huge bearing on your life itself, isn't it? I remember reading a short article, an interview with you, where you mentioned how through the process of your writing, your characters are not just black or white; they have shades of gray in them, very rightly, just like human beings. And
that's so important. That for me, that is like central to writing. If I cannot show complexity, I feel I failed as a writer. I failed. If I'm saying only this is true and nothing else, it's not true to life. And then I failed. Then I'm only bringing forward my own agenda, which I never want to do.
And it's interesting how you mentioned that has also made you evolve as a person, isn't it? You have become less judgmental, you said once.
Yeah. I think truly, I recommend that. I tell my students this all the time, but I tell other people. I say that if you start really honestly writing things down, what you see around, you will become less judgmental, because you will see that we all are, I don't know, complex. We all have our frailties, we all have our flaws. And seeing that in ourselves and others makes us compassionate, makes us less judgmental, makes us think, wow, humanity, this is what it is. I want to show that, in creating characters like Draupadi and Sita and now Maharani Jindan, I want to show that they have many admirable qualities and frailties. And it's okay for us to be, imperfect. That is what human beings are. I feel especially there is extra burden placed on women. Women have to be extra perfect if they are to be admired.
Yes.
Their frailties are pointed to more severely than others. They are punished for these frailties. And I feel that we need to examine that kind of thinking. You know, why should women be expected to be beyond human? We're not.
Queen Jindan, what is the one quality that you think helped her become such a powerful queen, particularly during those years?
I think, in my research and my examination of her character and my imagining of her character, looking at the things she did, she had this quality of saying, I'm not going to give up. And truly, that is what led her through her whole life. Because if you look at her life, she started as a daughter of a kennel keeper. What can you expect would happen to a daughter of a kennel keeper? You certainly don't expect that she would become a queen. But she falls in love with Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and she is determined, I'm not going to let my social standing prevent me, at least from telling the king how much I love him. And when she does that, when she really, makes that effort, Maharaja Ranjit Singh also sees what an amazing and different kind of person she is. And she was also very intelligent. She's very intelligent. So intelligent and that kind of, I can do it quality. And that's what, even when she's like imprisoned in Chunar Fort, which was, it was a terrible place to be and very highly guarded. She doesn't give up. She's like, I'm going to get out of this prison or I'm going to die. One of those two. That kind of quality. I really admire that.
True. I think there's a certain self-confidence and assured self-confidence, when she says, she doesn't hesitate to tell a king that she loves him, a kennel keeper's daughter, isn't it?
Yeah. I thought that was pretty wonderful.
Truly.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little about your Mistress of Spices. That was made into a film. Sisters of My Heart was a TV series. Palace of Illusions has also been optioned now, isn't it?
And Last Queen has also been optioned. I'm so excited.
Yes. It's something that's on my mind. So now when you are writing, Chitra, do you begin to keep in mind or construct scenes, how they might appear on screen or on stage even? Some of your plays were made into, your stories were made into plays as well.
Yeah. When I'm writing, I try not to think of those things because that would interfere with the process of writing. I do have to imagine everything in my mind, but that's something different from thinking about it as film or as some other medium. I really have to think that how can I make this scene that I'm imagining most real and most powerful for my readers. That's really because whatever else might happen, I don't know. So I can't put my attention there. But since I'm creating a book, I have to think in book format. How can I make this come across? What I'm imagining, what I'm feeling as I think about these characters, but what I do try to do is kind of get inside of the characters so that I'm trying to see the world through their eyes. So as I'm writing Maharani Jindan's story, how would she feel when she's just in her early 20s and her husband dies? And one day she is the favored queen, the most powerful queen in some ways, right? And the next day, she's nothing. In fact, not only is she nothing, but she's in danger and her baby is in danger. How would it feel inside of her head? That's what I'm most concerned about, rather than any other. I want to be able to convey that. How does it feel inside her head and her heart?
That's why you go into first-person narrative, isn't it?
Yeah, first person is, I have realized, my favorite form of narrative because it allows me to really delve deeply into that character. And who knows? There are books like Oleander Girl, which have several narrators, and some are first person and some are not. There are books like One Amazing Thing, where all of the narrators are third person. So it depends a little bit on the book, but if there's a very strong woman protagonist, I think I am inclined towards first person so that I can really explore the psyche of that character.
Right. You mentioned about how women are so strong, but in most of your works, the women lose something to gain something, isn't it, at the end of the day? Maybe
Definitely.
to move forward, if we move forward in some way, like in Inheritance of Laws, Savitri leaves her village to go to stay in a city, and she begins to miss her family. She loses that. Jindan too, in many ways, isn't it? Um,
Yeah.
did you have
No,
to
that's a very, I think that's a very true and intelligent comment that you made. And it's true about life, right? In order to gain something, we are always losing something, right? So it's like two sides of the human experience. You can't gain something unless you're willing to let go of something else.
right, right. Did you have to make any such choices, Chitra?
Well, certainly in coming to the first major choice was coming to America, right? I had to, and I didn't even do it consciously because I was very young at that time. But I had to let go of India in order to come to America. I mean, yes, India lives on in my heart, but the daily experience of that, vivacious multiplicity of living in Kolkata, I had to let it go. I had to let go of the warmth of friends and relatives to come to a place where I was pretty much all by myself. So, but there were gains. There were gains, right? I learned a lot about the world. I moved into the career I wanted to move to. So it's constantly, I feel, it's a loss and a gain. And like when I decided to get married, it was a wonderful gain. I married my husband, but I had to let go of, that college girl life, which was also a lot of fun. So constantly, yes, I think that's just the human experience.
Any regrets, Chitra?
Regrets? No, that is one of the things I don't believe in. I think regret is a complete waste of time. Yes, if we make mistakes, we learn from them, we move on. And I think I always felt this, but especially after writing Forest of Enchantments and examining the character of Sita. You know, Sita, she has really taught me that she has no regrets. She wastes no time thinking of, oh, how might it have been? Oh, why isn't it this way? She's like, this has happened. Yes, it is terrible. I have been banished to the forest for no fault of my own. I'm going to focus on what I need to do now. I'm going to bring up these two children the best I can, and I am going to do a really good job at it. Yeah, no regret, no time wasted in being angry with other people. That is an amazing thing I learned from Sita.
I, I,
So I
I,
believe in not living with regret.
I love that line in the email that you sent me to answering my questions, where you said you can be in control of, you can have the power to be in control of your emotions, your reactions to situations.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I really feel that
That,
that was a very important human lesson that
it's a big
I've
takeaway
learned.
for me, honestly. It is a penny dropping moment actually for me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chitra, I also want to talk about you. You are also an activist. You champion the rights of women, domestic helpers, things like that. Does your activism and your writing overlap at some time?
Definitely, definitely. I think both my activism and my writing focus on women, right? Focus on let us see the lives of women as they really are. Let us look at the challenges that are being faced by women. Let us try to make women powerful in their own stories and their own lives, and let us take away stereotypes that are harming women from living a life of dignity. So I think absolutely yes. And apart from the formal activist work I do, I often talk to women. I often give talks for women and for especially young women. I often speak to colleges, women's colleges or colleges where women are the main audience. because I think that age is a very impressionable age. And I want women to recognize how much potential they might be having that they're not aware of. And how to navigate through society in ways which will allow that I don't know, that ability, that potential to really flower. So that whole idea is very important to me.
If you can give us 3 pointers for women readers, what would you say to allow themselves to come to realize their potential, like you mentioned?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is we have to be aware of what we really want. We have to do a little self-examination, not like what do my parents want for me or what is society saying I want, but what do I really want? What will make me feel fulfilled as a human being? And once we decide that this is what will fulfill me, maybe in a particular career or whatever area people choose, then how do I go about it? So really then kind of plan out the steps, believe in ourselves. We need to believe in ourselves. Here is my dream. I believe I can make it happen. I have to intelligently construct that dream. Like if today I wanted to say, I want to be, I don't know, the premier of China, that's not a, that's not a realistic dream. So to make sure that our dreams are realistic and true dreams, to examine what I need to do in order to go after the dream and believe in myself that I can achieve the dream, and really be at once idealistic and practical. I believe in this dream, but these are the practical steps I must take. And to what extent is this dream possible for me? I must really understand it. And then, having understood that, I have to decide I'm not going to let anyone steal that dream away from me. So I think these are the things that I would tell women.
Chitra, just two last questions. I know it's getting late for you also, probably. To ask you this one. Is there a favorite book from among the ones you've written? Given you a huge sense of fulfillment after completing it.
Yeah, that's really tough because your books are like your children. You love them all, and often you love the baby the most because it's the newest one. You've been with it longest. So I do have a special love for The Last Queen, especially because, oh my goodness, during the pandemic, to research this book, it was such a challenge. I was like, how am I going to research this book? But it happened. So I'm very thankful for that. I was thankful. But I think probably Forest of Enchantments, because I learned the most as a human being as I was examining Sita's story. Because for so long, Sita has been portrayed to be meek and mild and someone who just puts up with what happens to her. She's shown as such a very pleasant but passive character. And as I examined her story, and I always felt in my heart she wasn't that. But as I examined her story and I analyzed it and I did the research, I saw the quiet strength of Sita, the amazing, quiet, really indomitable strength of Sita. Okay, so Draupadi and Maharani Jindan are indomitable in a very different way. But Sita is indomitable in a way that we often miss because she is so quiet about it. And so, I learned the most, I think, as a human being, as I was writing Sita's story in her own voice. So that book is particularly dear to me, also because I had been wanting to write that book for a long time. It took me a long time to get up the courage to think I can actually handle Sita's character.
Are there any challenges, Chitra, in writing in these, intensely, highly charged contemporary political times?
Yes, I'm always scared. I'm terrified. My family is even more scared than I. They're always telling me, why don't you write a little, a nice simple romance or something? Everyone will be okay with it. But what is the point of writing if you can't write about the truth as you see it, right? Even when you're scared, you have to write about the truth as best as you can. You have to write about things that you hope will change society in a different way. And I hope that as I am pointing to what I look at and see as the truths, I hope my tone is such that it is a tone, that it is a reasonable tone, and it is a respectful tone. And I hope that, readers, even those who don't agree with perhaps what I'm saying, recognize that the place where I'm coming from is a place where I want to look at the complexity of the truth that is a heritage of India. It is one of our wonderful things that we have this complexity, we have this tradition that looks at the world in different ways, right? We don't want to lose that. We don't want to,
I think we keep underscoring the fact about we being such a diverse, enjoying the diversity in everything. But,
Exactly. And when we look at something like the fact that there are so many Ramayans, so many Mahabharats, that is at the heart of our culture. And so I feel that in my small way, I'm following in a great tradition, in a great and very, amazing tradition of diversity. And, I certainly hope that we never lose that in India.
Are you working on something right now, Chitra?
Yes, I have started working on my next novel and still doing research and just planning. So after Maharani Jindan's story was basically my first foray into a book for adults that was about history, right? So it was truly about history. It's a historical novel. So having done that, though, I became very interested. I was always interested in history, but I became very interested, especially to follow the arc that we see in the early parts of it. We are seeing in Maharani Jindan's lifetime, which is what the British did in India, which was terrible in many complex ways. And let's not pretend it wasn't. I mean, in no way can we say that the British did not harm India. They harmed India in huge and deep and lasting ways. So now I'm interested in seeing the end of the arc. So this novel that I'm writing is going to be set right around independence, and to see that what happens in independence as India becomes finally independent. And, it is already, I'm seeing what a complex project it is, because it is a time of wonderful triumph. The country is becoming independent, but of great loss, tragedy, and violence as partition happens. So I'm just researching all that, and I'm often, as I read about it, I'm often just crying, because how terrible it was, the things that happened, as well as, the amazing, wonderful birth of a nation. But, and as I'm researching a little further back, the terrible things that happened in India because the British either allowed it to happen or they actually made it happen. And I just finished reading about the famine in Bengal in the 1940s. It is completely man-made, truly created by the British. And when I'm very visual, so I try to see as many photos, pictures, paintings as I can. And I see all these, the dead, the starved people of Bengal. Oh, it is very painful and touching. But I understand that that is part of my writing process. I have to feel these lives, and I have to feel both the triumph and the tragedy before I can put down even one word. So that's what I'm involved with right now.
Yeah.
So my husband will come across, I'm sitting in front of my computer, I'm crying. He'll be like, at first he was like, oh, what's happening? What's wrong? What's wrong? But nowadays he knows. He's like, yeah, researching again. I can see.
Yes, I was reading about how when you're in the process of writing and your family's talking to you, you sometimes just get that glazed look and you're thinking of your story.
Yes, my family is very, I have to say, they're very forgiving of all these writerly quirks and problems. And, I have to tell you one funny story. So when and as a writer, especially when I'm in the middle of a project, I have to write. If things interrupt me, I get kind of annoyed. So my family knows that when she's in the study room writing, unless there's an emergency, she should not be disturbed, especially my children, when they were little, they learned it. So then the children are so smart, right? So then I remember this one occasion when something was going on in the house. I think we were moving from one city to another. I was all frazzled, and I was in the middle of a book project. And so I was annoyed, right? So then my little son, he took me by the hand and he said, "Mommy, why don't you go to your writing desk for some time?" Because he knew that when I'm at my writing desk, I'm very calm and no one in the house is troubled by me. I still remember that.
You got two boys, isn't it?
I have two boys, yes.
Have they taken after you in writing? Or?
My younger one has. Both of them are big readers, but my younger one actually likes to write, and his, one of his college degrees was in writing. His minor was in writing as well. So we'll see. But it's great because they are good readers of my work and they give me good feedback on my work.
So are they good critics as well?
Yeah, they're good critics. They're good critics of my work. And you know how children are, they're all very straight. Tell it like they see it. They don't care what mommy will think. They'll tell it like they see it. And we all need critics like that, right? We all need like honest readers of our work. So I'm very happy. I also have a writers group that I work with. We read each other's writing and we give each other as honest a feedback as we can.
I think probably not just in writing, we need these kind of critics everywhere, I think.
And if we are open to them, if we don't get all defensive, if we are open to them, they can only help make us into better people, better writers, better human beings.
Yeah, as long as it's constructive criticism, I think that's always welcome. Chitra,
yes.
Thank you so much. I think I can just probably go on, but I'm just hindering your writing process somewhere.
No. I'm happy to do it. No, thank you. Thank you so much for choosing to write about this and making this book and I guess my other books available, the knowledge of them available to your readership.
So. And I sincerely hope to meet you here in Dubai, maybe at one of these festivals.
Yes, well, I hope one day. I'm certainly very open to the idea and we'll see what the universe decides. So is there a large Indian or South Asian community over here?
Oh, yes.
Very interesting. So interesting. I mean, yes, our world is a fascinating place.
Yes.
So much to learn.
So I must tell you one little bit of trivia. We have got something like 192 nationalities in UAE alone.
Amazing. For a place that is not geographically that large,
that's true.
That is quite amazing. People from so many different backgrounds can live together in peace. That is like the best thing. That is like what one hopes for the world. That is my hope and prayer for the world. That one day all of us will be able to live like this, right? In friendship, learning from each other. Not that we have to agree with each other about everything, but we know how to coexist happily and respectfully, right? So that's wonderful. You're living the dream.
John Lennon's song, Chitra, Imagine.
Oh, I love that song. That's like probably my favorite song. Yeah, imagine all the people living life in peace. That's my favorite thing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chitra, once again. And
yes, I look forward to the whole article coming out.
I will definitely share this the link as well as the PDFs with you.
Wonderful.
Have a lovely
day. Thank you. So what is your language background?
I am from India. I'm from Kerala.
Kerala.
I think Kerala and Bengal share a lot of things apart from
we do share a lot of interesting things.
Yes.
We do. Some years back, I went to Kerala and I became aware of the tradition of martial arts in Kerala.
Kalaripayattu.
Yes. So I'm very interested in that. And I've kept it in the back of my mind as perhaps a novel idea. It's a beautiful part of the country. It's truly beautiful.
Like they say, God's own country.
Yes, yes. Okay, take care. Take care.
We'll meet someday.
Okay, bye-bye.